Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to episode 238 of the Reformed Gamers, the show all about theology, gaming, and really, apparently delays, I guess, but not really delays. We'll get into that in a little bit. I'm one of your hosts, Logan.
And I am his co-host, Micah.
Micah, man, we were talking in the pre-show about old video game stores. I used to rent my video games and movies from just the humbly named video store in a small town in Illinois. And then that just sparked like a whole thing, man. We went and looked at Babbage's. We looked at, what was that? Farmore was the one that you were talking about?
Yeah, that was the one I rented video games from in the late 80s and early 90s. And good old video store, rest in peace. Man, that,
I know.
that really tickled me that was the name of your place.
I'm sure I bet it had like an actual name, but all I remember it as is like the video store, because that's what we called it.
Yeah.
Every Friday would be
like the name of your town video store,
Yeah, probably. But it's funny though, because I remember the name of the video store that made it go out of business, Second Cinema. Screw you, Second Cinema. But at the same time, thank you for providing me with countless hours of entertainment via DVDs and GameCube games. But yeah, no, this is crazy, man. I want to know from those of you listening, video stores. Send us your memories of them. I want to know. I want to go down a trip of memory lane. Were you a family video person? I always saw people that went to family videos like a little more high class. I don't know why, but I always did. It's no different than the Second Cinema that I had.
Really, for us around here, it was just Blockbuster. They had a monopoly. Well, no, it was Blockbuster and Movie Gallery. I remember that's what was around. You could get some games from as well. But Blockbuster pretty much had a lock on it after they gave Farmore the boot.
yeah, dude. That's wild. What a time, man. And we'll never experience that again unless like there's some random video stores set up in some town somewhere. Which if there are and you own one and you're listening to this, dude, reach out to us. I'd love to. I don't know. Just know that you exist, I guess. So I probably won't be able to go to it, but yeah, some things that we can go to though is this episode here. Y'all, thank you for listening to this episode. Let's kind of get into some things here, Micah, because we got a good bit of things to go over, as we always do. We're covering up, not covering up, but, going over the news, so to speak. Some good, healthy amount of write-ins again from our patrons. Shout out to the patrons. You can support us over on patreon.com/the Reformed Gamers. Low as $1 a month, all that jazz, yada, yada. Let's a few things I do want to go over real quick. Again, if you're not listening to our Marvel Snap podcast, Snap Chatter, please go check that out.
Get into it.
Should be 6 episodes out now. Did you say get into it?
Yeah, get into the podcast.
Yes, get into it. Get into it. Get into I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, go check that out. Links and everything will be in your show notes. Good time. Me and Nate are going to be talking about the day that this episode releases on public feeds. Me and Nate are going to be talking about healthy approaches to Marvel Snap, because really the episode was more for me than it was anybody else, because I have to remind myself, like, dude, have fun with the game. Stop taking it so seriously. Don't cry because you lost 8 cubes, and that's all I will say about Snap Chatter. But we also are going to be working on Talk TRG. The Last of Us HBO show did just finish its run here recently, and so me and Micah are going to work on a time here to really just recap the whole show, give our thoughts, give our reviews, and maybe get Matt Millsap on there as well to lend his thoughts as well, because he's always an inquiring mind and a voice that our listeners want to hear from. And to be honest, I kind of miss him. He's a cool dude. So yeah, we'll have to get him on here. So Matt, if you're listening, be looking for what am I trying to say? We're like,
get into it.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Matt, Micah, get into it.
Help me out here, man. I'm floundering here. I'm sweating in my Persona hoodie, man. Let's get into what we're playing, man. Just kick us off.
No, man. I think I mentioned it on the last episode. 40th birthday coming up for me. My wife is. Thank you. My wife is getting me a PlayStation VR 2, and we went ahead and got it for me early. Nice, because she's awesome. So I actually ordered it like the day after maybe we recorded the last episode. So I've had a good amount of time with it. And so before I dive into some of the games, let me just kind of talk about the hardware a little bit. Yeah. Just kind of
because I retweeted that picture of you with your Joker happy grin holding the box. I was like, dude, I cannot wait to hear Micah
Yeah.
talk about this
Yeah,
PSVR
I
2.
was giddy. I was the classic, like looking out the front blinds of the house, like looking for the UPS man, like every 10 minutes kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout out to, you can only buy the PlayStation VR 2 from Sony directly. Shout out to
Oh
them.
wow.
I ordered it through with like standard shipping and I got it next day. So
Oh wow.
good stuff there.
They they always kind of seem to do a good job with it. I remember when I got my PS5 shortly around launch, it came like 2 days later, if that, and I was like,
Mhm.
dang, that got here fast.
Yeah, there was an option to pay up for 2-day shipping, and I just
Mhm.
declined that. It's like I'm fine waiting a few days, and
Right, right.
it was on the doorstep the next
Yeah.
day. I think I was just close to a distribution center, maybe, but I
Oh,
digress.
okay. Yeah.
Um, so it came quickly. I've got sort of a pros and cons list. I'm going to kind of go
Okay.
over real quickly, and I'll just hit
Okay.
the cons first. Let's talk about the cord. That was one of the things that, when it was announced and we learned a lot about it, it was like, oh, it's still got a
Mhm.
cord. Okay, well, I guess that would make it pretty costly if it went
Yeah.
wireless. And that's true. But the thing I'll say about it is it's, of course, way less bulky of a cord compared to PlayStation VR 1,
Okay.
with all that
That's
setup
good.
and stuff. And by the way, just quick caveat, I'm going to compare a lot of things today to PlayStation VR 1 because that is my main primary source of kind of VR context. I
Sure.
have played and I've used an HTC Vive over at a buddy's house, but
Mhm.
never owned one. So my
Okay.
primary point of kind of comparison is going to be PSVR 1. But the cord is still a problem. Like if you didn't like it before, it's nothing's really solved here. You're still going to sometimes be sitting on it. You're still going to sometimes going to like just get off my shoulder kind of thing.
Mhm. Okay.
That stuff still exists. So if you
Yeah.
thought that was a problem before, there's nothing particularly better about that now, other than it's a little more lightweight and kind of easier,
Okay.
just kind of wheeled around.
Is it just a USB-C cable?
It is just a USB-C cable, which is part of
Okay.
my pros
That's not
in the
bad.
pros column. It's a super easy setup. You plug it
Okay.
USB-C right into the front of the PlayStation. You're ready
Mhm.
to roll. The initial setup is fantastic, intuitive, and easy. Really neat and
Okay.
cool, actually. Um, yeah, compared to the VR one, it's night and day. It's like, wow, this is super simple.
Okay.
Um, the main gripe I have is, and you may have seen this around the internet already, is it's really hard to find the quote unquote sweet spot when it comes to like it being in focus and stuff and
Mm.
like having
Yeah.
it up and down and left and right and kind of the distance from your eyes.
Yeah.
And it has a new dial on it where you can kind of it's like a wheel, like a mouse wheel, where you can kind of dial it back and forth, and it brings the lenses in and out based on
Okay.
how far apart your eyes are and how big your
Okay.
head is and all that kind of stuff. So you can
Yeah.
set it up, but then sometimes you have to, I've been fiddling with it, and if you pull it in too tightly, it kind of pinches your nose a little bit and it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Okay.
um so I'm still playing with it and toying with it and figuring it out kind of where is that sweet spot, and I think I've
Yeah.
gotten some solutions, but that I've heard that already, and it is something that I ran into as well, where I'm kind of like readjusting it every 10 minutes or so. Like, is this right?
Yeah.
It seems just slightly out of focus, but
So, like,
it's not a huge deal.
have the games kinda, like, had this blurry effect or because I've listened to a few podcasts and just read some more write-ups, since, we last talked about the PSVR 2, and that was one of the things they brought up was that, like, they feel like they don't ever have it, like, quite in focus like it should be. There's
Well,
always,
like
like,
I
a little
said,
bit of a
it's just
blurring
like
effect.
it's not. You just have to find the sweet spot. Once you're there, you're like,
Mm.
there we go, and everything's fine. But it can so easily kind of bounce out of that, sort of.
S Sorry, I was just thinking, like, "Oh, so it's like the 3DS." So
That's not that's not a bad point of comparison. I remember that whole debacle. It's not egregious. It's not like,
Sure.
ugh, I hate that. It's just like you can tell sometimes, like, I don't feel like this is just perfect, and you kind of
Yeah.
want it to be.
Mhm.
So I'm still playing with that, and I have made progress as far as like, okay, I need to tilt it back further on my head and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, the last con I'll mention is that there is a known problem, like a issue slash bug slash something with the Sense controllers, which I have right here for people
Mm.
watching on YouTube. The
Oh,
right
those are
Sense
cool.
controller is it doesn't like sync up when you go into games. Like you're working on the menu and it's fine, but when you go into a game, none of the buttons work. And there's a workaround where you just have to boot up the game with the regular DualSense controller and then swap over and you're good to go. But that's a problem right now. I don't know what, like, it happens across multiple games. It doesn't happen every time, so it's really weird. But that's kind of a random just bug that I'm assuming they'll patch out with some firmware. Maybe, I don't really know what's going on there.
Watch, they'll do it by the time this episode releases on public feeds, and people watching or listening will be like, "What are you talking about? That doesn't exist, dude."
Yeah, no, people who are in the ecosystem know it's a big thing on the subreddits. Transition over to the pros. It is a huge leap in like tracking. Again, going back to the Sense controllers, these guys are awesome. The way that they just, you can like, lift your finger, like you got the trigger here and you've got the L1 or R1 button right here. I'm sort of pressing it on the YouTube video. And then of course where your thumb sits on the thumbstick. And like, for example, Horizon Call Them Out, it knows if your hands are just sitting and resting on those buttons, and you'll do different hand motions depending on that. There's all sorts of neat things going on there. And just the general tracking of your hands is outstanding. Especially compared to those Move controllers of PSVR 1. Again, the shielding that goes around your eyes and kind of blocks out all the light is fantastic. Like it is completely blacked out. You're in a different room, kind of thing. That there was some light seepage in the old PlayStation headset. I thought,
I remember,
and that is completely eliminated. It is perfect.
That's cool.
There's a button now right on the headset, just on the bottom. You hit it with your thumb right here, and it allows you to look at your surroundings. It's like a black and white camera, so you can just like boink, oh hey honey, I see you there. Yeah, okay, I'll get that when I'm done with this. Cool. And then boink, back to the game. It's maybe one of the best quality of life features that exists.
This is going to sound really stupid of me to ask this. Does it need to be plugged in for you to do that? Because I'm like,
it's got to be turned on.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking like, dude, I can be an X-Men. I can be like Cyclops sort of, like, or maybe Data from Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not so good. You can barely, I tried to read a text message with it in that mode, and I could kind of barely make it out, but not perfectly. So you're not like sitting there watching YouTube help videos with it on or anything like that. But if someone walks in the room, or if you're like, you bump into something like, oh wait, what's that? Okay, there's the lamp. Cool, let me back up over here. That kind of thing. So that's a super dope feature. Let's see, I already went over the setup. Obviously, graphical improvements over the PlayStation VR 1 are there. The thing has head rumble, like there's like vibration slightly in the whole entire headset. I thought that was going to be potentially jarring and intrusive and thumbs down. But they really, so far in the games I've tried so far, it's really subtle and seldom used. It's only used in you're right next to like dynamite blowing up, and just kind of the vibrations there, like something. Or if you like are in Gran Turismo and you slam into a wall, something very obvious where you're definitely going to get some impact. So, and then the last thing I'm going to mention about the hardware itself, I know I'm taking a long time. We're skipping, by the way, we're skipping over TRG Kids. My kids are playing nothing new this week. We didn't even mention that. But the last thing I'm going to mention is the eye tracking. This is crazy. This is the most like wild, like kind of next gen-y kind of thing to me. When you set it up, it gets you to kind of go through the setup process, and you follow this little dot around the screen and stuff. And then it's like, okay, you're done. Now look at each of these little lights, like different colored lights around kind of like a clock, like, numbers on a clock. And you look at them and they light up when you look at them. And boy, I tell you, it is the weirdest thing in the world. And so the way it played out, one of the only cases I saw it was in Horizon Call of the Mountain, is you just do menu stuff with that. Like you pause it and go to the menu, you just look at the menu item and then press X.
That's pretty cool.
It takes a minute to get used to, I'm not gonna lie, but it works fantastically and is super sci-fi futuristic feeling, and one of the neater aspects so far. Maybe it's sort of a bell and whistle that'll kind of wear off over time, but for now it was really, really dope. Okay, so as far as the games that I played, I'm going to real briefly talk about Horizon Call of the Mountain,
Okay.
Gran Turismo 7, and this game that kind of is turned out to be kind of a good launch game, this kayaking game. I so I did something really, really wrong, Logan. I was so excited. I got my VR headset. I'm like, yeah, Horizon is the game, right? It comes packed in with the thing. Let's boot up Horizon. Yeah, I'm a VR veteran. I've done VR before. No comfort settings whatsoever. Let's get this
Oh,
bad boy
no.
going. And I start playing the first level, and we're climbing, and we're going, and we're running around. I'm shooting the little raptor robots. What are they called? Watchers in the game with my bow and arrow. And then about 3/4 of the way through that first mission, I'm like, oh, there's that feeling. There's that familiar
There's that
feeling.
vertigo, yeah.
It's the VR sickness. It's creeping in. And I know the rule of thumb when it comes to VR sickness, and that is stop playing immediately if you feel anything. And I did not do that.
I was about to say, why does it sound like you didn't do that?
I knew, I was like, I gotta be close to a checkpoint or like the end of the first mission or whatever. So I powered through for another like 5 minutes, which doesn't sound like that long, but in VR it's decent. And so I got to the end of the mission and I took it off, and it wasn't awful, but it was enough where I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, yeah, I don't feel great for dinner tonight. And I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had put some comfort settings on. So long story short, that kind of ruined my experience with Horizon. And so I went back to what I would call baby VR games. And so I'm going to work back up to Horizon. And so like that kayaking game kind of falls in the same category where like I need to work up to that. Real quick.
Oh, that's funny.
Real quick, I want to talk about Gran Turismo 7. This is a special VR experience. It's not something that I'm like, I'm going to play Gran Turismo 7 in VR now all the time. It's not that. It's just like, hey, buddy, come over to my house and just play a race and check this out. It's dope. The sense of speed that you get is incredible. If you could even like have like a box fan or something blowing on you, it'd be even better, especially if you're like a convertible or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, when you go into like a turn and like you're going too fast and you're going to crash into the wall, like you feel like I'm like leaning in to like brace myself for the collision, even though there's going to be zero impact, actually to me. It's a 10 out of 10 VR experience. This thing is awesome. Absolutely incredible. You put the headphones on for the full experience. And what's so funny, I did it the first time I played it. My wife did it the first time she played it, and I saw a bunch of people on the internet. Once you get going and you kind of get like you're done with your first lap on it, and you hit your first straightaway, you all of a sudden start bobbing your head because the music is going in your ears, and you're just like, yeah, you're feeling it, and you're bobbing your head to the music, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man.
I'll quickly try to go through these other ones. I played and beat Moss Book 2 on the VR.
Please tell me it's good.
It's fantastic, Logan. You've played the first one, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I thought so. I thought so, and that's great.
Awesome game.
I'm glad that you have, because it's the way that they. Let me kind of flip over my notes real quick, make sure I'm saying this right. The way that they kind of wove in the core gameplay of Moss 1 and then expanded on that is really beautiful. A lot of the core, like, you're pulling this block out so that you can now walk on it. All that, they kind of reintroduce all those things from the first game that like kind of those sound principles of the gameplay, and it's they like level that up. They introduce multiple weapons now. You get 3 different weapons instead of just the sword, which is a great variation move. They do things with puzzles, of course, with that as well. It looks outstanding. They continue the story, and straight up, no joke, this game was trying to make me cry.
Oh,
and I'm like, dude, I'm in a VR head. I can't cry. I'm in VR right now. Like, this doesn't mix. Like, I'm tears on the lenses. Like, what? No, you can't make me cry. What are you doing? So, pulling at the heartstrings a little bit. Good little tale that they wove here. Shout out to PolyArc, the developer. I would like for PlayStation to acquire this team. I think they would be a good fit, and they would be a good VR developer for them in the future. They've kind of got a good relationship with them. When I looked at the credits, it's had like external partners, thanks. Sony Interactive Entertainment was at the top of the list, among others like Epic Games and some other ones, aka they gave them money to make the game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would like for them, this would be a good fit, in my opinion, for them to acquire and like a smaller dev that would make sense. But shout out to Moss Book 2. I think it won VR Game of the Year at the Game Awards this past year.
Oh, right on.
And yeah, it's an outstanding follow-up. So if you've got VR and access to that game, definitely play it. Real quick, I played this VR game called What the Bat.
I saw you tweeting about this.
Yeah, this game's a lot of fun. It's from the creators of What the Golf. And
okay.
This is a silly little game, kind of in the same vein as like Job Simulator or something like that, where you're just kind of like standing in a spot and you got these fun like puzzles and gameplay tasks to do. And the premise of this game is that your forearms are wooden baseball bats. That's right.
What?
Yes, it's so silly. It's like Octodad silly.
Man, okay. When you said this was like What the Golf, I was sitting here thinking like, oh, golf, whatever, you're gonna be hitting stuff or throwing the baseball bats or whatever, like you did in What the Golf. I was not ready for you to say that your arms were baseball.
Yeah, your forearms specifically, not your whole entire arm. You can't bend at the elbow if it's a baseball bat. So the game has you doing all sorts of tasks involving hitting like a baseball basically off of a tee, kind of. It's just floating in the air, and like hitting trophies and like various things that you got to like knock around. It's a lot of fun. I got all the trophies on this game, and Logan, there's no platinum trophy.
I saw, man, and I was like, what the heck? In the year of our Lord 2023? Come on.
I don't think I've played a PlayStation game without a platinum trophy since like the PlayStation 3 days. I was in shock. I was just going through and I'm like, wait a second, where's the plat?
Man.
So anyway,
that's sad.
I still recommend this game, What the Bat. And then lastly, and I'll turn it over to you, Logan. I know I've been talking a long time.
Oh, let's talk about it, man. I've been waiting for it.
A non-VR game. I had to get up on that Resident Evil 4 demo when it dropped after the Capcom showcase. Okay.
So good.
I've got a lot of thoughts actually about this.
Okay.
First and foremost, they did it. They did it. Like, I think so. I think this is going to be a heck of a game. I think like all the dialogue is intact. Like, where'd everybody go? Bingo, all that stuff.
I love they kept that in.
Like the kicks, like the karate kicks is like the roundhouse kicks you do. It's not karate kicks, roundhouse kicks you do.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff is there. The section go ahead.
I feel more punchy this time too. Like I was like, man, I feel like I just broke this dude's ribs.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It is just as difficult and harrowing, like the section of the game you play, which I guess I won't spoil it or anything for those that are going in fresh or whatever, but it is a hallmark of the first game kind of early on. And it's a really difficult section. I loved everything about it except for one thing. And I think I texted you about it, Logan. And I don't know really how to put my finger on it. I hope it's due to the fact that it's, early and it's not out yet. It's, old code. But the controlling Leon felt off.
Yeah.
And what it felt like to me, the only way I can describe it is it felt like the camera was following behind Leon at the same pace that he was stepping in like the real world. So it had sort of like a chunk and stop and chunk and stop kind of motion to it.
Yeah. When I did it, because I always found it when like I would be walking towards something and then like I need to go back and turn around. And normally in the games, you can just kind of do that pretty seamlessly. It's fine. But in this game, I felt like Leon was going to literally trip over his feet and fall over. It had that kind of effect where it's like I want to preface it with this. This isn't something that's going to ruin the gameplay, but it does, at least in the demo, we'll say that. It's enough to where at least I caught it and was like, wait a minute, okay, that was a little weird, but Everything else is great.
Yeah, I've got two thoughts on that problem. I think A, it's going to be not a problem when the game releases and
Yeah,
we won't
probably
notice
not.
anything. Or B,
Yeah.
there will be something in the settings you can do to make it better or feel better if it
Yeah.
still feels off. It was weird. Like I've played like this is my genre, like over the shoulder third person action adventure
Yeah.
games. Like I've played so
Yeah.
many, and just as soon as I started walking, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, we know how these games are supposed to feel when it comes to moving around, and this
Mm-hmm.
one had a little. I'm hesitant to call it jank because I mean it was fine for the most part. It's just in certain things you really. I mean, I
Yeah.
noticed it.
Well, like I said, I just was singing high praises about it. It wasn't
Yeah,
that distracting, but when
yeah,
I was kind of paying attention and wanting to notice it, I was definitely noticing it. And
yeah.
yeah, hopefully they just fix that up. But otherwise, two thumbs way up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This looks like game of the year contender material.
Yep.
I think we talked about this in the past. The Resident Evil series is like, I think where our tastes like converge maybe the most,
Oh yeah.
perhaps.
Oh yeah.
So of course, we're looking forward to this game, and yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like it's shaping up really great.
Yeah. I can't wait for it. When I who was it? Someone in the Discord in the patron channel mentioned it might have been DPT mentioned that the demo was I like lost my mind because I didn't get to watch that showcase. And so I was like losing my mind, like scrambling to my PlayStation, signing my wife out of Hogwarts Legacy, getting into the store, and downloading it. I was like, get out of here. I need to play Resident Evil 4. And then she was like, do you remember what you did with my Dragon Age Inquisition save? How you deleted that twice? I was like, this isn't happening again. I saved before I exited out of your game. But no, it was that may or may not be a true story, or it might be a bit of an embellishment. But yeah, I was losing it, and man, that one little thing aside about that one little thing with the controls, holy guacamole, dude! This game, if they kept all the goofy stuff in there, and like just I'm gonna say this one thing, this one little trick that you can do without really spoiling it. But there's this candle in this like building that when you shoot it, it activates this thing that kind of helps you out a little bit. And I'm just like, I'm so glad they kept it in here, but they added a little more to it. And I'm just like, dude, this is, I feel like with this game, just based off that demo and the stuff that we've seen, this is going to be another scenario like with the Dead Space remake where don't even bother going back and playing the original. I feel like this is going to be that same case where it's like,
Mhm.
this is the definitive edition of Resident Evil 4. There's no reason to go play the original, but Capcom knows we're going to buy multiple copies of this as they keep re-releasing it over the
Yeah,
next 10 years.
yeah.
But yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with the demo. It's really good. The Ganados are way more creepy this time around. I mean, just like how they'll like walk around kind of like this with their necks cranked down. You see the parasite slowly creeping out.
I felt like there were
Um,
more of them.
yeah, yeah, there was more people too. It's just I'm trying to keep this as spoiler free as possible. I mean, the game came out in like what 2007 or something like that, but 2006. But still, like, look, those of you that are into survival horror, you like Resident Evil, you're into Dead Space, you want more. Don't play Callisto Protocol. Just go download the Resident Evil 4 demo. I
Yeah,
think Resident Evil 4, the remake, comes out the week that this episode releases on public feed. So,
yeah.
um,
March 24, I think.
yeah, that's this Friday that this episode's gonna drop on
Hmm.
public feeds.
Yeah,
Man, what a time to be alive! What a time to be alive.
love to see it.
Uh, Micah, any other thoughts on Resident Evil 4,
No, we
the
can move
demo?
on with the rest of your games.
Fair enough, man. I did finish Hogwarts Legacy. Awesome game. I got the good ending. My wife showed me the bad ending, and I'm like, yeah, that's creepy. Not doing that. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're a Harry Potter fan by any stretch, I mean, you're probably already playing it, but you probably already beaten it. And you're probably on your third playthrough as a Hufflepuff or whatever house you picked. Really good stuff. Again, I want to shout out this game and the developer, the studio. Was it Portkey Games, I believe. Just the attention to detail in this game is just insane. They got everything from the books, from the movies, the side content. Just seriously awesome job on just the world building alone. That is just kind of a sight to behold and just see just how much of Hogwarts and the surrounding area they got right. Really good work. Really good work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all I'm going to say about Hogwarts Legacy. Played it. I'm not going for the platinum, unlike Micah over here, who did get the platinum. Good job, man. I couldn't do those Merlin trials and getting all that stuff, man. I just no, that's not my thing anymore. But speaking of platinums, y'all know that I played Persona 4 Golden 4.5 times to get the platinum. I played Persona 5 and was like, I'm not getting this platinum trophy because it's just a crazy trophy list. Persona 5 Royal comes out. I see the trophy list. I'm like, that's not bad. I'll eventually get around to it. After 107 hours in this game, I can thankfully say I have the platinum in Persona 5 Royal. And man, I gotta be honest. We talk about, playing, not even bother playing the original version of games anymore. Yeah, Persona 5 Royal just makes the original completely obsolete. Granted, it's a large part of it's the same game, but a lot of the changes they made with like the combo moves between the two party members, the new characters, some of the new locations, some of the quality of life improvements just make this so much more fun to play.
Okay.
And just the true ending, in my opinion, is way better than what it was in Persona 5. Just really cool stuff. That the extra content is so stinking dope. I was getting to it and I was like, man, this better be good, because I'm approaching the 100-hour mark, and if this isn't good,
so you mentioned playing Persona 4 Golden 4.5 times or whatever. Does this
yeah,
game require multiple playthroughs, or just can you kind of power through one?
you can do it one playthrough. That's what I
Okay.
did. I just followed a guide, and even with some of the mistakes I did make, like not meeting up with a certain character on a certain date or not doing a certain activity on a certain date or whatever, I still got everything done that I
Okay.
needed to before, I think, the November mark, like November 25th or something in the game. But yeah, Persona 5, if I remember correctly, that trophy list required you to play through it twice. And nah, dude, ain't about that. So yeah, thankfully the Persona 5 Royal trophy list is just leaps and bounds better. But again, shout out to the extra content at the end. I was worried it wasn't going to be worth it, and thankfully it was. It did some really interesting things. I can't talk about it without spoiling it, but it was really good. I love that when you get Royal, you get all the extra DLC stuff. So I just basically had the persona that you unlock after beating the game, which is like at level 90 or something. It was stupid overpowered. So that's why I breezed through the game as fast as I did, because my original playthrough of Persona 5 took me 99 hours. And so I did this game and the extra content and all the extra stuff in Mementos in 107. So I'm like,
Very nice. Yeah.
that's not bad.
Yeah.
Awesome game. Still one
Very
of my favorite
cool.
JRPGs. I don't care what people on Twitter say. It's a great RPG. If y'all don't like it, well,
When
I'm
do you
sorry you have bad
think
taste.
we're going to get Persona 6 announcement anytime soon?
I'm hoping this year, just because I drafted it in the fantasy
Oh, yeah.
critic league. So I'm like, please give us Persona 5 or Persona 6. Just give it to us. That would just top off my year, man.
When did Persona 5 originally release? What year?
2018, I want to say. Sounds right.
So then, yeah, they're even if it's 2019, like they're about due, I would
Persona
imagine.
5 release date. Just doing some Googling. Oh, 2016. Is that right? No way, that's
Persona
2016.
5 release date?
Yeah. No, yeah, September 15th, 2016. It's been that long?
Has it?
No, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't
No,
sound
I
right.
think that might actually be right. Now that you mention it. Well, regardless, it's been a long time. Even
Over
if
6 years.
even if it's 2018, but what you're saying is right. It's been extra long. So yeah, that would
Man,
make total sense if it was around the bend. So yeah,
yeah. That would be crazy if they, I mean, E3 is right around the corner. Who knows?
yeah,
Man,
dude, man, cross your fingers. That would be sick.
that would be crazy. That would be crazy. Speaking of things that are right around the corner, well, sort of.
Ish.
One part is, the other part isn't. Micah, let's get into this news because this kind of caused a bit of a kerfluffle online with Xbox announcing Starfield. Can we really call this a delay
Yeah,
exactly?
see, okay, that's one thing I was going to get into. So yeah, that's the headline is Starfield finally got dated for September the 6th. And
Mhm,
as well with this announcement, they said that they're going to have a Starfield Direct
mhm.
immediately following the June 11th Xbox showcase.
Yeah,
So, you would think like one of those big Todd Howard deep dives into the game, once they
mhm.
kind of have like a trailer in the proper showcase. At least that's what I'm expecting. So September the 6th, and this comes after Bethesda said late last year that Redfall and Starfield were getting delayed into the first half of 2023. So we're thinking by the end of
Oh,
June
okay.
is when we're going to get these games.
Mhm.
And then they said, okay, September 6th. So people are saying delay. Most outlets, you'll see
Yeah,
that. I was never really expecting it in the first half. It
yeah,
doesn't feel like a delay to me. This seems like the right time for it to come out, in my opinion.
yeah.
So
Man, I'm gonna look. I know we've gotten some flack about apparently being too hard on Xbox on this podcast, whatever. Um, but I gotta say, like when I saw all these, like just kind of, I'm hesitant to use the phrase clickbait, but just seeing all these titles be like, Starfield delayed and blah. I'm like, y'all kind of need to chill.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I am 100%. I was listening to Defining Duke about. They were talking about this. Like, I'm right there with them. I'm okay with this getting delayed if it means the game is going to release in a polished state. Because let's be honest, Bethesda RPG games usually have a lot of glitches. Granted, they're hilarious, but still, they're usually pretty glitchy. So I mean, if this is going to give them a whole lot of extra time to polish the game and release it in a good state, and plus release it in the like at the start of the fall season of gaming, I'm cool with it. To be
yeah.
completely
Yeah,
honest.
this is a game that Microsoft knows they have to nail.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
especially after what happened to Halo Infinite.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people
Hmm.
just immediately when I said that was like, no, Halo Infinite's great, and yes, it is. The core gameplay is great, but
Yeah.
we all know how that game went with the live service stuff. Like it's
I say
not,
the support just wasn't there like it
yeah.
needed to be.
And the argument could be made that that game could have used another delay.
Yeah.
Even though again
Yeah.
that core loop was good to go, they needed it for the tail.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think they're kind of looking at that. They're looking at they being Microsoft is looking at Halo. They're looking at the cyberpunks of the world, and they're
Yeah.
saying, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're going to get this right."
Yeah.
Especially
And
with the track record that Bethesda Game Studios have, and they're huge games that are have a
yeah.
lot of bugs sometimes.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think they know they have to nail this. This is
Yeah.
their biggest game, certainly since Halo Infinite, and maybe their
Mhm.
biggest game for a while. To
Yeah.
be quite frank, like in the foreseeable future. So I think they know they really have to nail it. So they're going to give it its time. And let me pitch this to you. We kind of already talked about how we feel about it. So
Mhm.
this was an interesting prospect that might become a reality. So September 6th, that's
Mhm.
around the time we're thinking Spider-Man 2 is going to come out. How
Mm.
do you feel about this sort of head-to-head heavyweight boxing match of Spider-Man 2 versus Starfield in what could be the exact same month?
I mean, my chaotic side's like, I love it. I'm here for it. Let's see what happens. Um, then there's the other part of me that's like, how the crap am I going to be playing both of these games? I mean, that's like right at the start of school. I'm not going to have time for to do that. I think it'll be interesting. I'll just kind of wait and see. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to just kind of see how it goes. I mean, especially when you compare Starfield. I think again, I was listening to Divine and Duke, and they were kind of mentioning that. I mean, you have Starfield dropping on Game Pass, where people are already subscribed to it. Boom, I'm going to be able to play it right there. Versus someone is going to have to go out and spend $70 on Spider
Hmm.
Man. It's like
Yeah.
that's gonna create a pretty interesting landscape
Hmm.
to see how that goes. Regardless of that, though, I'm excited for both. Probably about equally excited, to be honest, just because Starfield is like right up my alley. I love space. I love just like technology and just how all that lays out. I mean,
Hmm.
Outer Worlds is one of my favorite RPGs from Obsidian. Shout out to you guys.
Yeah.
But I also
And,
love Spider Man. And so, I mean,
yeah, so
I don't
many
know.
unknowns with Starfield, and
Yeah.
hopefully, of course, we're going to get that Starfield Direct in June on June 11th. A quick shout out to Microsoft. They have been recently they've been doing their showcases. I'm pretty sure June 11th is a Sunday. Let me double check that. They've been doing them basically during church time, is what I'm getting
Mm.
at. And I had a huge problem with it. Let me double check this. It is on a Sunday again.
Yep.
I think they've been at 12 p.m. Eastern time, which, for many of us across the U.S. are
Yep.
in church during that
Yeah.
time, and we can't tune into a Microsoft press conference like we would like to.
Mm-hmm.
So they changed it to 3 p.m. Eastern, which is a slightly better for some of us. Maybe we'll at
Yeah.
least be out of church, and
Yeah.
won't have to feel guilty about watching an Xbox showcase. So yeah, just quick shout out to that little
Yeah.
side note that I thought was interesting.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
awesome.
any other thoughts about Starfield before we move on?
I'm stoked for it, man. Which is funny because I remember like seeing the first reveal they had, and I was like, this looks cool. This looks cool. But
Mm-hmm.
like the more it kind of percolates in my brain, and the more I look at it, I'm like, this looks really stinking cool. Like I'm pretty hyped. I'm pretty confident this game is going to be pretty good, right?
Oh, at least.
But I'm hoping it'll be just stinking awesome.
Yeah.
Like I know people differ on this, and I know that because some of my students argue with me about this. I think Fallout 3 is one of the best games that they've made.
Yeah, I agree.
And if it can surpass that, bro, which I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna do. I'm fine with the delay. I think this is gonna help the game, and I think we're all gonna benefit from it even
Mm-hmm.
better. It's just
Yeah,
I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready for it.
perfect.
Take all the time they need.
Okay, next news item on the docket. This is coming from Insider Gaming and Tom Henderson. He's becoming a well-known insider, for lack of a better word, here in the industry, and he is reporting. He's got a good track record. He is reporting that the PlayStation 5 Pro is in development and could
Hmm.
release late 2024. Now, Logan, this comes off the heels of him reporting that we're going to get a new model of the kind of the base model of the PlayStation 5 with a detachable disk drive, which
Uh-huh.
will basically wind up replacing the current model that's being sold right now, which is
Mhm.
supposed to happen at the end of this year, by the way. So, according to the source that he has, this is from the article. It says this is, quote, just the beginning of new hardware coming from PlayStation users this generation, end quote, said one source when talking about the detachable disk drive console. As for what the PS5 specs will entail, details are limited. However, a recently published patent by PlayStation architect Mark Cerny suggests that Sony Interactive Entertainment is looking to, quote, accelerate ray tracing performance in video games. So that's kind of the all that's really in the article. And I saw Tom come out on Twitter and say, like, hey, I know I'm getting a lot of like, trust me, bro, with this article kind of stuff. But he's like, listen, he kind of, backed up his stuff and is like, this is going to happen. Tom's credentials, especially when it comes to PlayStation leaks, is pretty impeccable. So
Mhm.
I think you can take this to the bank. And yeah, so I know we had a write-in about this,
Yeah.
Logan, if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, as always, you can get your write-in submitted for every episode of the podcast over on patreon.com/thereformgamers. This one comes in from Dorian Taylor. Last gen having pro systems made a little sense. The adoption rate for 4K TVs caught console manufacturers off guard, and we then got Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Marketing for both was relatively simple with buzzwords like 4K. When the series systems and PS5 launched, they went as far as putting 4K 120 being like the refresh rate of the screen, your FPS, and 8K on the box. Rumor now has it that a PS5 Pro is in the works to make better use of ray tracing with frame rates and such. I'm curious about your thoughts as to whether or not an upgrade like this is worth it. And if it happens, how do you suppose it would be marketed? I don't know, man. Because it, I can't remember who it is I follow on Twitter was talking about this. And they were talking about how like we can't even get some games to run at a steady 60 frames per second and maintain that fidelity that they should. I don't know if we should really be getting pro systems already or that talk should be happening already when we should be making the most out of this hardware that we have currently. And I agree with that to a sense, but it also makes me wonder like if you got more power, right? You might be able to pull that off. Now, again, I'm not super computer illiterate, or no, computer literate. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically trying to say I don't know everything. Uh, hopefully this would help with that, but as far as how it would be marketed, I don't
That's
know,
a
man.
tough one. It is tough because, this article is so limited, A, and B,
Yeah.
they could be a number of things that they do that would be like bullet point items for this PS5 Pro. When I hear about the Mark Cerny patent for the ray tracing stuff, it makes me think about like the tricks that they pulled for the SSD in the PS5. Like maybe there's a
Mm,
really um, low resource kind of pulling way
yeah.
to do a ray tracing on the PS5 Pro that will be really easy to implement and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
I was really trying to rack my brain, Dorian, about like how would it be marketed, and the only thing I could sort of think of was what I wrote down was uncompromised performance. And it's sort of like what you were saying, Logan, is like, well, you're going to get your full 4K with ray tracing at your 60 and 120 frames per second. It's not
Hmm.
going to be this like, fidelity and performance mode stuff. And yeah, you'll still have that, I suppose, if you want to, max out your settings. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe something like that where like, yeah, you're going to have your cake and eat it too. You're going to get your full, 2160p resolution graphics with the best ray tracing that this thing can offer, and it's going to hit 60, no problem.
Yeah.
Um, and the question is, well, is that enough to sell a
Yeah.
brand new system? And my answer to that, real quick, Logan, is yes, because there's always a market that's going to buy these cutting edge consoles.
Yeah. That's
I'm
true.
I'm in that market. Because I think I paid $90 for my PS4 Pro when I got it, because like I traded in the old one and I had
Oh yeah.
just had some credits, and like it wound up being like $90, not $400 or whatever they're charging.
Hmm.
So if you can kind of just be wise with it like that, it's not necessarily a huge upgrade. But yeah, I just think there's always going to be at least a small market that will buy the Xbox Series X, or excuse me, the Xbox One X, pardon it, from last gen, and the PS4 Pro, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have much more to add beyond that. I think you hit it pretty well on that and offered a lot more insight into, at least in regards to the marketing and stuff, than what I could. I I don't. For me, they'd really have to sell me on it, because right now the PS5 is just so, like, the current systems that we have now are so powerful enough. I'm like, what can you do to make me want to buy a pro version? I'm going to be the more skeptical one, I guess, because I don't. I
Yeah.
guess I'm going to say I don't see it would be worth
Right
it, to
now,
be
it's
honest.
hard to see, is it, especially with everything, with the climate,
Yeah,
economic climate, and everything. It's hard to see, like, well, why should I upgrade right now?
yeah,
Am I
yeah.
going to have to go through another scalping situation where I got to, fight,
Oh gosh,
race to the
yeah,
clock to get to the stock out on Amazon and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff? Is it going to be another one of those?
Well,
So
I'm teaching my students about AI right now in robotics, so I'll just build an AI and
bingo.
have it score me one. I'll use it for good, just to buy myself one, and then that's about it. But it'll
That's good.
probably become self-aware and buy all of them and charge it to my card. That'll be fun. That'll be fun to watch. Um, but yeah, anything else about the PS5 Pro, Micah?
No, last quick note. If Tom's rumor comes true, 2024, next year, late 2024, that would be 4 years since the release of the PlayStation 5. And if you recall, the PS4 Pro came out 3 years after the PS4. So it's actually,
Hmm.
if you're like, man, that's really quick, well, it's actually even longer than
Yeah,
it was for the PS4 Pro. My thought is, if you think it's unnecessary, don't buy it. There's going to be people that
yeah,
want it though.
yeah. True
So
that.
yeah,
True that.
options
So,
are always
Micah,
good.
I'll be looking forward to hearing your thoughts in late 2024 when you get one of these.
Exactly. You know me.
Yep.
Last news item we're going to hit here, and this is kind of a building upon of a story that kind of broke late last year, but this is the original source was Gamatsu, who basically tweeted this patent that happened. Let me pull the article up over here on VGC. Um, so they found a reference. So Gamatsu found a reference to something called Project Zircon, in this trademark that Konami filed under, the video games and software entertainment category or whatever the heck they
Mm-hmm.
call it. And so Gamatsu just kind of did some digging and found out that Project Zircon is a jewel, the least valuable jewel in the Castlevania series, and I think first appeared in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So they surmise that, well, it seems like we have a Castlevania project coming, but this already, Logan, comes off the heels. Video Games Chronicle reported late last year that Konami is coming back, and this was before the Silent Hill thing happened. So we already got Silent Hill. There's the rumor about Metal Gear Solid 3 being remade, and now we have this Project Zircon being trademarked, which is almost certainly a revival in some form or fashion of the Castlevania series.
Do it, Konami. Do it, you cowards.
So
Do it.
with all these rumors percolating, Logan, what do you expect from Konami this E3 season? Are they about to have kind of a bonanza?
I hope so, man. I hope so. Sorry, I'm adjusting my my foam things over here. They're starting to fall off the wall. Yeah, dude. I think with that Silent Hill showcase they had really surprised a lot of people. Some of the things they showed was a little like, okay, I don't know how this is gonna work. But that Silent Hill 2 remake, that shocked a lot of people. That shocked me because I'm like, dude, I literally just finished playing this, and you guys are gonna remake it. Oh, awesome! You got the Metal Gear Solid 3 rumors floating around. You got they might come into E3 swinging, man, and I'm here for it. I would love a new Castlevania game. I can't remember if you mentioned it or not there. I kind of got a little distracted by those foam things coming off the wall. The last Castlevania game we got was in 2014 with Lords of Shadow 2, which I didn't know it had been that long. I mean, it's almost 10 years, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But of course we did just get Castlevania DLC and Dead Cells, which might be a little canary in the coal mine sort of situation where they're like, hey, we're starting to bring Castlevania back. Y'all better get ready for it. And so I don't know, man. I was kind of wondering when I saw the Dead Cell stuff. I'm like, are you guys about to bring back Castlevania? Are you guys about to do a reboot or do a remaster or something?
Do you want a 2D Castlevania or a 3D Castlevania?
2D.
Okay.
2D. I played Lords of Shadow, and that was actually my first Castlevania game, and I loved it. I thought it was really cool, very God of War-esque. But then I played Symphony of the Night and was like, nope, this is the only way I want to play Castlevania. Granted, I will play it whichever way they make it. But yeah, I think there's something about that 2D aesthetic style of gameplay that just screams Castlevania. If you do it 3D, is what it is. But I don't know, I'm not going to be a purist about it. If they release it and I think it looks cool, I'll definitely play it. So
yeah.
Have you played the Castlevanias actually? Now that I'm thinking about it,
not a ton. I don't. So I didn't grow up with an SNES. So
you didn't get Super Castlevania.
That is one of the key kind of gaps that I have in my sort of just history, and so I never grew up with things like Super Metroid and like a lot of the Castlevania games and stuff. The first one that I ever played was Symphony of the Night on when it came out on the PlayStation originally in 1998. And I didn't like it back then. I wasn't. The thing was, like, I was looking for for hot new 3D graphics, and that didn't scratch that itch. I had just got my console, and that was like, oh, this is an old game. I don't want this. And so I rented it from Farmore, and I bounced off of it. And I understand, how great that game is and the reception and everything else. If I went back to it today, I don't know how I would feel about it, but I've just never gone back to it. The only Castlevania game I've played is Lords of Shadow 1. I beat that one. But no, Castlevania's never been my thing, but I would love to have something like a Metroid Dread, something like that for Castlevania, like a modern 2D take on it,
Yeah, I'd take it. Yeah, no, I'm excited. I will say this about Symphony of the Night. I tried to play that game like 2 or 3 times and just didn't like it. And then there was that one time I sat down, played it, and I was like, hours just disappeared. And I was like,
maybe I should give it another shake as an adult. Cause I was like 14 or 15 when I played that. And I was like, oh no, this isn't cool enough. So
no, it's a really awesome awesome game. I highly recommend it if anyone hasn't played it and they're into the just that sort of style of gameplay, the Metroidvania sort of thing. It's really, really good. Really, really good. Right on, man. Well, that brings us to, I guess, not like ending the show, but we're winding down with some questions, some write-ins here from our can't talk apparently, from the folks over on our Patreon. The first one comes in from our boy Kokorodaki, and he asks, how would you guys feel about games set in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere universe? I'm going to stop right there, Kokorodaki. Yes, give me them. I'm going to read the rest of it, but just I want to interject. I love Brandon Sanderson. Good stuff. He says, he continues on, for a long time now, I've been wanting to see games set in the Mistborn and Stormlight Archive series in particular. Even if they're not actually adapting the books, I'd love to play in those worlds. Personally, I think Arcane, the developers who made Dishonored, would be perfect for Mistborn. Not a bad choice. And FromSoft would be perfect for Stormlight. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or maybe other books you'd like to see games of, or other developers you'd like to see tackling the Cosmere? Micah, I need to stop and ask first and foremost, have you read any Brandon Sanderson's books?
No,
Are
I
you
have
familiar with his work?
not. No, I have not. I'm not much of, I think I've talked about this on the show before. I'm not much of a fiction reader anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I find time to read, I'm reading something nonfiction and like edifying, like spiritually edifying.
Okay. Yeah.
So just read so little that's kind of what I steer to. I just don't read fiction. So no, I haven't, but I know how much you've talked about it and gushed about it even on the show.
Yeah, man.
So hearing you talk about it and what I do know about the universe, hearing Kokordaki's question about Arcane, this all sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I've never read the Brandon Sanderson books. No.
Well, in that case, let me go on. Let me just turn this into the Brandon Sanderson gush hour. Just dude is
Do
a
it.
dude. I mean, we're talking about this a little bit in the Discord server. Like, the dude is a beast. He is so crazy talented when it comes to writing and building out worlds and fleshing them out, and just writing really deep, complex characters, and um, just getting a lot of things right in the fantasy genre. Seriously, I know I've recommended his books multiple times. If you have not read any of his books, please go do it. There's plenty of them to read. If you're into space and stuff, Skyward, you have that series. If you're into the fantasy genre, Stormlight Archive. If you want something a lot less thick and a little more manageable in terms of like book length, Mistborn's your book. He's got several comic books out that you can actually check out too. I can't remember the names of those at the moment. Something like Sand, something related to sand, and those are actually really good too. If you're into superheroes and you're more of like a younger adult, Steelheart is a great series. Seriously, anything this guy has written is well worth reading. And I lost my mind a little bit when I saw that they were putting Kelsier, one of the characters from Mistborn, into Fortnite, and I'm like, "What are you doing, Sanderson? Are you gonna make a Mistborn game? What does this mean? What are you doing?" He's got a game out now on Steam that's an early access. I'm going to pull up my Steam client here because I have it wish listed. But it doesn't really have anything to do with any of his books. It's just a universe he created just for this game. It's called Moonbreaker,
Okay.
where it's in early access, but you get like these little units, like kind of like a Warhammer a little bit. You get to customize them, paint them, move them around. They do attacks and stuff like that. It's a strategy style game. It's pretty cool. If y'all haven't checked it out, go look it up. Moonbreaker. I would love to see his games or his books become games. I like the idea of Arcane taking on Mistborn. I would even sitting here thinking like maybe Ubisoft could do a good Mistborn, like Assassin's Creed style. I think that would fit it pretty well. I like the idea of FromSoft doing Stormlight. I just don't know how they would do that. Um, I was trying to think of this earlier of like what kind of developers I would like to see, because I feel like Stormlight would be a really good RPG, like Dragon Age or um oh gosh, even like Fable or Fallout, even something like that, where you have like a lot of characters you want to spend time with and hang around with and do all that, man. I think you could do that. I would even love to see Skyward as a game, and it could just be like a simple Star Fox on rails shoot 'em up, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if that would really fit within. No, that would fit within the context of the world. But yeah, man, I would. His stuff, the Cosmere itself is just ripe for the picking when it comes to games, man. There's so many things they could do with it. And fun fact, Brandon Sanderson's books, specifically Stormlight, helped me appreciate Trails in the Sky a lot. Because
No,
if you guys have seen my video, I was a little lukewarm on the first one, and then I read Stormlight Archive, and I'm like, you know what? I was 100% wrong in that game. I see what they were doing. They were just trying to flesh out the world, get you invested in the characters. That's why I was a little slow. It wasn't meant to turn you away. It was meant to get you invested, and they nailed it. Hence the reason I love the Trails game so much. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention I was playing Trails to Azure. Whatever. Go in the Discord, and I'll talk about it there. But yeah, no, I would love to see that. Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love it. Would love it. Going on to the next one. Sojourner writes, and it says, artificial intelligence seems to be all the rage these days with stuff like ChatGPT, Starry AI, etc., being used to write creative prompts or create images. I could see it being used to do stuff like filler conversations with NPCs, environment randomization, and stuff like that. How do you think the gaming industry will utilize or react to more powerful AI systems in the coming years? Side note, since I am a teacher, I feel a little obligated to say this. Don't use ChatGPT to write your papers for you, kids. Don't do it. That's plagiarism. You didn't do it. You let a robot do it for you. Don't be that lazy. Now, if you're playing Marvel Snap, you can use an AI to have you play the game. It's called Agatha Harkness. Get the card, let it play the game for you. Have fun.
Is that becoming a problem? Students using ChatGPT?
We've caught 2 or 3 students this year using it.
Oh my goodness.
And we're just a small town in Texas. There's a few people I follow on Twitter that teach at colleges, and they've had to deal with it. So, I mean, it's going to be a problem as the years go by. I love technology. I love AI, especially the stuff that Google's implementing with like their emails and some of their stuff with how AI is going to help you like draft emails and stuff like that, and set up a spreadsheet with specified command prompts for specific people. I think that's going to help optimize a whole lot of stuff. I think that's really awesome. But technology, like anything, it can be used for good or evil. You know, it just depends on how it's used. That's what I teach my students whenever we go over this stuff. But how do we think the gaming industry will utilize or react to more powerful AI systems in the coming years? I don't know, man, because didn't Hello Games use like some sort of algorithm processing stuff for No Man's Sky to generate all those planets?
Well, they used procedural generated stuff, but I think that the one that comes to mind for me, the gaming example, was the Grand Theft Auto trilogy last year used AI to upscale some of the assets.
Oh man,
and that had some wacky results because of that.
Yeah.
So that's the only one I can really think of. I'm sure AI is used in lots of really kind of great ways already. But as far as how is it going to be used in the future, that's a great question. That is, for people way smarter than me. I would hope that it would be used to kind of take on these more mundane tasks of programming and game development that doesn't require, human touch, that human input and sort of artistry, that I don't want to take away from, the art aspect of video games, and that like I created a thing and I created it this way because I'm the programmer on this game. And then if someone else was programming it, they would have made it a little bit different. And so I have my touch on it, like I don't want those things going away. But there's a ton, people, developers, programmers tell you there's a ton of tasks that are redundant and just take time and have no like artistry to them. It's just, you got to get this task done, and there are tons of ways that AI can come in and save the day in those sorts of ways, I think, and really save time, hopefully in the long run. So that's kind of how I hope. I have no idea how they're actually going to use it, Sojourner. But that's kind of where my head went.
Yeah, I would have definitely echo that. Like, I think this is would be better toss at people that are a little more smarter and more in the know of how these systems work, a little bit more in depth. Because my knowledge of it, when I teach it to my students, it's just very surface level stuff, and even then, it's not really in depth. I think filler conversations with NPCs is an easy application right there. Probably even could do a whole storyline with just that there by typing it in. It's one of the things I love about the Trails game so much is that each NPC has like its own tree of dialogue that it goes throughout the game, along with the each individual chest that you open has a specific set of dialogue that it opens up. Like if you open the chest, take the item out, and go back and open, like activate or interact with the chest again, it gives you a dialogue prompt. Usually they're all pretty funny, and it's still the same in Trails to Azure. They're still making fun of me, and I love it. It's just good stuff. I think I could see an AI easily doing stuff like that, adding a nice little, flavor to some of these games with things like that. But other than that, man, I don't know. Maybe doing some of the like light work, like remastering a game, and then the developers go in and kind of clean up and do all that.
Yeah,
Would be
I
another
don't
one,
know.
but not, learning from what Rockstar did. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think AI. I know some people are kind of like doom and gloom about it, like, oh, it's gonna be like iRobot. I don't think it's gonna be like that. AI is not that complex, at least not yet. But I'm excited to see its applications in the coming future. But I know, again, it's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some people who are going to use it for good and create some really cool things with it, and there's going to be other people who use it for bad, and we'll just deal with it when that comes down. But
yeah,
exciting future, man. But speaking of speculating, John Hannon writes in and says, music is hugely important in games, and I love that so many quality composers are getting their due and being hired for big projects. Something that sort of started happening in film, though, was more unexpected composers being given big jobs. I think Daft Punk and Tron Legacy, awesome soundtrack. Legacy, no, I read that again. M83 and Oblivion, Mark Mothersbaugh, formerly of Devo, in Thor Ragnarok. I'd love to see more of this kind of thing, as these musicians brought new flavor to their projects that otherwise might have been more of the same old kind of thing. So my question is, what band or musician would you like to see take on a video game project, and what kind of game would it be? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I would love to see a project based around Donkey Kong done by Taylor Swift.
Oh my.
I'm kidding, of course. I don't know. That would be weird. That would be so weird. Are you kidding me? Man, if the OC Supertones were still around, I bet they could make a pretty banging Donkey Kong soundtrack. For shout out to those of you that remember OC Supertones. Man, Micah, what do you think, man? I've got one in my head. I would like to see, and one that I already know is happening currently, and it's on Spotify, and I'll recommend it. But man, are there any things that come to mind for you?
Yeah, this is close to my heart. I wrote several answers down. Music and video games is looking back at the games I play, so many of them have excellent music. Like, I think that's the thing that just draws me to a lot of the games that I like, is a common denominator is they oftentimes have really, really great scores and stuff. But anyway, that's a big component in games that I love. Some bands that I wrote down. So Coheed and Cambria already makes these kind of like concept albums with full on stories and stuff. So I think Coheed and Cambria can kind of get back to their early aughts style sound and make I want an action game, like an action adventure game or something like that from them. Or even it could be a wide range, it could be like a space, rock opera, or it could be something like Conan the Barbarian. I could see them doing the soundtrack to both of those things.
Yeah.
So Coheed and Cambria is the first band that came to mind. Second band that came to mind, I don't know if you know this, and you might not. Explosions in the Sky.
Yeah, kind of that instrumental, very atmospheric sort of sound.
Atmospheric instrumental, no vocals on that. Doing some sort of art indie game, like Flower or something. I don't know.
That would be cool.
And then last one I'll mention that kind of came to mind, not really a small band or whatever, but Jack White, I think would be cool. From the White Stripes and so many others, from Dead Weather, all sorts of things. Jack White, does solo stuff, like a narrative tale from him. I think would be cool. Something real folksy, maybe. Something like a telltale kind of thing, or even, I don't know, just some sort of narrative adventure maybe would be cool from Jack White. But those are a few that came to mind for me.
Man, so one that I thought of, I was like, what would be really cool? And this is just kind of a given, like it's easy. Like it's like I don't know why they haven't done this yet, but I don't know, maybe they're just not gamers. I would love if Demon Hunter, the metal band, did a Doom project.
Oh yeah.
Like I think that would just be such a perfect fit. I mean, half their music you could literally play or like listen to while you're playing Doom anyway, and it'll go with it. I just think that would be really fitting. Their song "Not I" off Triptych would be a perfect fit for Doom, actually, just because it's just so visceral.
Wonder, you got to
crunchy.
think that someone at Bethesda, it has crossed their minds, or I guess id, maybe whatever, Bethesda id, whatever. Someone at the developer, it has crossed their minds to do that. You know, you got to think that maybe they floated that question over to Demon Hunter, and maybe it just didn't work out. I don't know. That would be super cool, though.
Be so cool. Man, and I think like just I always love like anytime like what's his name? Is it Mega Ran? Yeah, he does a lot of like Mega Man style or Mega Man focused hip hop tracks. He's really good at it. And even friend of the show, Son of the Rain, does similar things. He's got a Street Fighter song called Master Flow. Almost called Super Flow. No, it's Master Flow. You can go check it out. It's actually really good, and he does a lot of stuff like that. I just love that sort of thing. I would love to see someone like NF do something like related to a specific game, something a little more kind of upbeat, fun, kind of like what was that Xbox game that came out around launch that Insomniac did? What was that game called?
Crud. If you hadn't said it.
Yeah, it was the thing where the soda and the grinding on the rails. People are screaming at
I can only think of Hi-Fi Rush for whatever reason.
I know, that's all I can think of.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and everyone else does too.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. But one I do want to shout out that if any of you are, I mean, this guy mostly does Legend of Zelda stuff, which is really stinking good. But he's done things for, I think, like Fire Emblem,
Sunset Overdrive.
There it is, Sunset Overdrive.
Jeez.
That would be good.
Sorry,
can't believe we forgot that. Good grief, that was a pretty good game. But he's done stuff for Legend of Zelda. He's done stuff for Metroid. He's done stuff for Nier Automata, Kingdom Hearts. I don't know what this album is, but there's this artist called Rosen, Rozen, that just does these phenomenal renditions of Legend of Zelda music. If y'all haven't checked it out, go listen to it because it's really good stuff. It fits with it. Yeah, definitely go check it out. As far as beyond that, I'm not really sure what else I could really think of off the top of my head. I was thinking about this all afternoon. Man, that was the best I could come up with.
One quick thing I wanted to note. This doesn't really answer your question, John, but a game that came to mind, it's not really like a band that made a game, but this game is like revolves around music, and it's sort of like a pop album, is Sayonara Wild Hearts. Is a really cool game that blends this whole idea I think you're sort of getting at, to where, say, like if you put in, band ABC and they did the Sayonara Wild Heart soundtrack, like, it'd be basically what you're saying, John. So that's a good example of music blending with gameplay and it kind of being there from the design from the get-go.
Yeah, man. That's such a good question, man. John, thank you for writing in.
Yeah, very good question.
Listeners, let us know what you would, or which band or musician you would like to see take on a video game project. And let us know what it is and what kind of game it would be, or what game it would be, period. Last question to round out the show is the second one coming in from Dorian Taylor. Do you prefer 2D or 3D Metroid? And this kind of gets into Castlevania a little bit earlier, because I already kind of mentioned I would do 2D.
I stole Dorian's thunder. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah. Micah, have you played any Metroid games?
It's the same thing as Castlevania, Logan. I've not really. I've played I've played Metroid and Super Metroid, but I've never like sat down and tried to beat them or whatever. I've played Metroid Prime, but like for 10 minutes at a buddy's house kind of thing. Like, I haven't really played any Metroid games whatsoever, which I know hurts your heart. And I really, truly, I want to remedy that, like, sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
For the only, just because I'm on the show with you, I feel like a bad friend for not playing a Metroid game. So I need to do like a, like, I'm going to give you a choice. No. I'm going to give you a choice. Like, pick either a Metroid game or a Persona game or something like that. Some series I've never played, and you pick the game basically. I gotta send you some options, I think.
Yeah,
but I think I'm ready to do it. Well, let me just curious. Just last little bit of banter. What if you could pick one Metroid game for me to play? What would it be?
Dang it, that is hard.
Is it Prime Remastered?
I mean, that's what I lean more towards, just because I feel like I think Metroid Prime is the most, what's the word? Accessible, because not everybody's into 2D side scrolling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a 3D shooter, so to speak. I think that would be probably the one I would recommend people start with, because I feel like that's the most accessible. Although I do have people who, like, Metroid Dread was their first Metroid game and they loved it, but they're like, holy crap, this game is hard. And I'm like, yeah, it's not normally that hard, but get good. But no, I think Metroid Prime would be a good one to start with, especially with the remaster being out. I will say this, if you have, I'll do two. Depending on which route you want to go. If you want to do 3D, Metroid Prime, obviously it's on the Switch. If you're going to do side scrolling, probably Metroid Fusion, since that's on the Nintendo Switch Online thing.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say Fusion is because it's more linear, so you won't be as overwhelmed exploring things. It is a little hard, but I don't think it's that hard. But,
what is the original console that Fusion launched on? Or
Game
handheld?
Boy Advance.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance. Okay, cool.
It kind of fits the hardware. It's a really good game. So it's not the best. Zero Mission definitely eclipses it, but I think Fusion is still a really good game. So
is Fusion a remake of like 2 or 3 or something like that, or is it just a new game?
Fusion takes place after Super Metroid, and so that's like a sequel to Super Metroid.
Okay.
Zero Mission was a remake of the first game, and Samus Returns was a remake of the second game. So you have those as well.
Okay. I was listening to Josh and Nate talk about Super Metroid this past episode, and they were talking about the whole series and talking about Fusion and all that kind of stuff. So very cool.
Yeah, such a good series, man. Such a good series. If y'all haven't played Metroid, go play it, dadgummit, man. Especially with Fusion being on the Nintendo Switch Online now. I think you have to have the expansion thing for the Game Boy Advance games, right? So you got to pay the extra money for it.
Yeah.
Still worth it. I mean, at least I can say that confidently now, just because the amount of games you're going to get just on that service is actually, there's a lot of good ones on there. But Metroid Fusion is really good. It's nice. It's linear. It's straightforward. It is a little difficult in some parts, but it's really, really good. I think that'll be a good way to dip your toes into it. But if you have a Switch, we all know what you need to be playing.
Ooh, yeah.
You know, this is a weird flex because I'm like, oh, I got one. It's supposedly rare and hard to find these. But for those that are listening to the audio, I held up a physical copy of Metroid Prime Remastered. But yeah, it's as far as what do I prefer, I like how pretty the 3D games are, but I prefer the 2D games personally. I don't know what it is. There's something about that just flat 2D plane that I don't know. It's a little bit easier. 3D Metroid gets a little.
Well, it's just where it originated, and it also is kind of like, you know, when you talk about Metroidvania, like you're talking about the 2D ones.
Yeah. I will say the 3D Metroids though do translate that style of game to 3D really, really well.
Sure. Okay.
Regardless, just if you can pick up a copy of Metroid and play it, do it. Just don't pick up the original game on the NES because there's no map and it's hard to play, and don't pick up Metroid 2 on the Game Boy because that's hard to play too. They haven't aged well. I know some of our listeners have played the original games and they like those, and that's fine. I'm not trying to dog on you. It's just like if someone new is going into it, that don't play those. They're going to be difficult to play. They haven't aged well. But yeah, that's it for this episode of the Reformed Gamers. But a few things before we actually end the episode. This is our second episode of the month, so we got to shout out our patrons that keep us afloat over on patreon.com, allow us to get games, support my Marvel Snap addiction, get upgrades to our equipment and stuff like that. Yeah, not buying cards like Kang and anything. No, I'm messing. But for real, we do appreciate y'all. It does help us in a long way, just helping keeping the show going, getting some upgrades for just the different equipment that we have. Like, just want to mention again, we were able to upgrade Skinner's computer a little bit with some of the funds that we got from Patreon. So thank you again to Patreon supporters, and want to shout them out in this episode here. And so those people are Aaron L. White, Alan Z. Thank you for your executive producer support there as well. Brand new support. Alex Castellanos, Boulder, Calvary Zender, Chris Freeman, Christopher Commander, David Matthews, Derek Smith, Dorian Taylor, Jake Walker, Jimmy Chunga, John Hannon, Jonathan Harrison, Josh Brocklow, Joshua, the Super Llama Johnson, Kokoro Daki, Luke Strain, and Matt Edwards.
Matthew White Chocolate McDougal, Matthew Millsap, Melvin Benson V, Micah Hendrick, Michael Toller, Mr. Butts, Nate McKeever, Porcho, Richard Marroquin, Ryan 1701E, Sam White, Savon Pena, Struffosaurus, Sojourner, Third Strongest Mole, The Syriac, Vincent Yu, Wesley Ray, Xavier Medina, Yuki Alley, and Zachary Nelson. Thank you so much, patrons.
Yeah, thank you guys. With that being said, let's get into some Recos, some things you need to check out this week. Micah, what do you got for our listeners?
Yeah, man, we're going to continue off the wave from last episode where I'm going to start recommending, again, we're going into news a lot more. I'm going to start recommending outlets you should check out. Basically, like, stop clicking on the IGNs and the Kotakus. I mean, if they break a story, sure, knock yourself out. But you see the sources of all these places going back, and there's common denominators I keep finding. So last week, we talked about Video Games Chronicle. This week, we're talking about, of course, we already talked about him in the show. It's insidergaming.com. I think is what it is. Insider Gaming. Just search for it on Twitter, on the web. Tom Henderson is the fellow that runs this site. It is a pretty fresh site. He needs an editor. I see typos all the time on his site, but he just has leaks like no other. He's constantly leaking things. He's constantly not like, like here's, like movies, cutscenes to games. It's like, information like PS5 Pro and like, oh, this game's getting delayed. Oh, this game exists. All that kind of stuff. So Insider Gaming is a great resource. And yeah, Tom Henderson is the guy behind it.
Right on, man. I've got two recos for our listeners. One of them I mentioned earlier, Rosen, I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, on Spotify, that does a lot of just like Legend of Zelda stuff. If I were to recommend one album that he's done, a personal favorite of mine is Children of Termina. Yes, that is Majora's Mask. So go check that out. Really cool stuff. Really good time. I'm going to mention this other reco, and no, I'm not referring to the band when I reco Creed. Me and my wife just watched, because Creed 3 came out or is coming out something recently, and I was like, man, I've never seen any of these movies, and I own the first one. I don't know how I haven't watched it yet. And me and my wife sat down earlier today, we watched it, and I was like, Dad gum, this was a good movie. Like, and just the way that it's shot too. There's this one boxing match that is literally just all one shot, or at least it looks like one shot. And man, just the artistry alone on the shots and stuff is worth watching. But just, I think Michael B. Jordan kills it.
Awesome.
As Creed, and just Sylvester Stallone coming back as Rocky. I mean, it's just awesome performances all around. Really, really good stuff. I don't know the lady's name, but she played Valkyrie in the Thor movies. She's in it as the love interest. She's a really cool character. Helps keep Michael B. Jordan's character kind of grounded. Does a really good job of that. Just, man, a great movie. I was surprised I hadn't watched it. I was like, what the heck? How did I not watch
you're saying you should go into that movie with arms wide open.
With arms wide open under the sunlight. Welcome to this place. We're getting DMC striked. Dude, my mom loved Creed, and like she would blare that in the car all the time. So I know a lot of those songs.
Oh man, we all know
By
those
heart.
songs
They're so
secretly.
good. They're so good, man. What a band, man. If it, you know what? No, screw this. Go watch the Creed movie and then go listen to Creed afterwards. What a great band. I don't care what anybody says, man. That was the lead singer was kind of went a little crazy there for a while.
He's a little crazy. Yeah.
But man, that music. Oh man. You know what? Creed should do, they can't do it because they're not even together anymore. Now they're Alter Bridge, and Scott Stapp is doing his own thing. I was gonna say Creed should do like a Castlevania project or something. That would be nuts. Anyway, those are my recos. Creed the movie, Creed the band, and Russ, and go check them out. As always, dear listeners, you can interact with us in a variety of ways. The links to everything will be in your show notes, whether it's YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel. Leave comments. Leave nice comments. Don't be mean to us. Check out our website, Twitter, follow us. Discord, all that jazz. Links to everything will be in your show notes. With that being said, thank you for listening to this episode of The Reformed Gamers. And until next time, be a dear, keep it locked here. We'll see you in the next episode.